And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome aboard, everyone. I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan, and this is your Alaska Marine Weather Outlook on this Thursday, July 31st, 2025. And we start the marine outlook with the state of the sea ice. We have plenty of open water, the Chukchi Sea and along the coast there. Still some remnant ice along the Beaufort Sea, but again, we're in that slow melt-off process of the latter summer. So that'll just gradually continue. And there are going to be warmer temperatures for this weekend, Friday through Sunday. We do expect warmer temperatures all along this region. So, in fact, some areas could get into the 60s with some 70-degree readings along the North Slope, even out near the coast. But there will be a cold front coming in off the Arctic Ocean by early Monday morning, and that will put an end to the warm temperatures across the far north. And looking at the satellite imagery, we still have this low circulation just south of the Gulf in the North Pacific. We have another little trough rotating through with some showers along the outer northern panhandle, and that's going to pull back along the Gulf Coast tonight into Friday before flinging more showers into the Kenai Peninsula and around Cook Inlet, Anchorage Bowl as we get into Friday later afternoon and night. And those will likely linger into the day Saturday, especially through at least midday Saturday. And then back from areas of the southeast bearing along the Kuskokwim, Bristol Bay areas where there's been some sunshine. Temperatures have been in around or above 70. Bethel, Dillingham, King Salmon. And this ridge of high pressure extends back, is rebuilding along the west coast and western interior, all the way up here to along the Canadian Arctic coast. So this region will see much warmer temperatures Friday into Saturday and Sunday, and then meanwhile, a couple of lows, one low out here in the Bering, another secondary low, bringing another surge of moisture and breezy conditions up into the Aleutians, and that'll be the weather player here. You'll see in the marine forecast with the stronger south-southwest winds. So Friday afternoon, we have a low that's down near 980 millibars, and the front pushing through the eastern Aleutians, lower Alaska Peninsula. Still this pesky low. This low here is finally, I think, going to open up and disperse its last bit of moisture across the panhandle by Sunday. And then again, here's that ridge of high pressure, especially across the northern half of the mainland for Saturday. Still the low there down in the lower Gulf and North Pacific, and that feature will start to open up and just kind of be absorbed northeastward. Meanwhile, we still have the high holding on Saturday, so it's going to be very warm up here. All areas along, especially along and north of the Yukon River, and even down here along areas of the southwest where you get sun, you'll see 70-plus degree temperatures Friday into Saturday. And then the low just sits and spins out here in the Bering and gradually fills in the front extending southeastward from it. Maybe a weak secondary low developing southeast of the Alaska Peninsula in the North Pacific come Saturday afternoon. For Friday, we are looking at southeast winds 10 to 15 knots, inner channels of the Panhandle, waves generally couple of feet max. Outer coast winds could be southeasterly as high as 20 knots off of Port Alexander, Sitka, Cross Sound with waves 5 to 6 feet before turning more easterly at Cape Suckling. And then on Saturday, look for southeast winds around 10 knots, inner channels, waves foot or two. And for areas of the outer coast, south wind at Craig 10 knots, turning southeasterly and maybe 15 to as much as 20 knot easterly winds by the time you get out outside of Yakutat Bay and east of Cape Suckling, waves generally 4 or 5 feet. Across the northwestern Gulf, Prince William Sound, 15-knot variable winds Friday, waves couple few feet. Outside of Hinchinbrook entrance, a mixed bag of winds variable to easterly, 15 to 20 knots, 4-foot waves. As we go through upper and middle Cook Inlet, southwest winds 15 knots, waves a couple few feet. And then variable winds around 10 knots there, Kemishak Bay, outside of Homer, and in the region of Kennedy entrance with waves running a few feet. On Saturday, look for easterly winds, Prince William Sound, 10 knots, waves foot or two. Easterly winds, 15 knots, Kayak Island to Hinchinbrook entrance with 4-foot waves. And in Cook Inlet, winds a little variable there. Southeast 20 knots, lower Cook Inlet with waves 3-4 feet turning southwesterly. And then southerly, once you get north of Kenai up toward Anchorage with waves, maybe a couple of feet there for the day on Saturday. On Friday, variable winds will be surrounding Kodiak Island at just 10 knots, so waves only a couple of feet. As we go down along the Alaska Peninsula, those variable winds are going to turn more east-southeast and pick up 20 to 25 knots, especially north of Cold Bay with winds, with waves maybe as much as a few feet either side at Cold Bay and False Pass. On Saturday, winds will be variable to easterly, 10 to 15 knots in the vicinity of Kodiak Island. And as we trail out down along the Alaska Peninsula, we do have that front or trough that's going to be working its way northeastward. So ahead of the trough, east-southeast winds 20 to 25 knots, strongest on through some of the gaps on the Bering side with waves running a couple, 2-3 feet there. Now the Aleutian chain Friday, we already have the one low that's up here north of the west side of the Aleutians. We got another impulse coming up along and south of there Friday into early Saturday. So ahead of this front, winds are southeasterly 25 knots or so. They turn southerly briefly, and then they go back to the west-northwest to 30 knots. So definitely from Atka west through Adak and the western Aleutians, some stronger winds veering south to westerly at 30 knots. On Saturday, we still have the system sitting and spinning north of the central and western Aleutians. So look for south-southwest winds, 20 knots on Alaska and Nikolsky. As we get west of there, winds will be southwesterly through Atka and Adak, all the way out to Kiska at 25 knots before turning westerly, Kiska up towards Shimia and Attu. And for Friday along the southwest coast, east winds 10 knots within Bristol Bay, southeast winds to 20 knots, Kuskokwim Bay. Winds could be as high as southeast 25 knots, Pribilovs, easterly winds to 30 knots in the vicinity of St. Matthew, waves 8 to 9 feet out there. Generally offshore flow, look for easterly winds 10 to 15 knots out of Norton Sound and along the lower Yukon coast with waves of a couple of feet. On Saturday, southeast winds 25 knots, Bristol Bay, Kuskokwim Bay. They continue up along the Yukon coast, but not quite as strong, 15 to 20 knots, and then easterly winds out of Norton Sound Saturday at 10 knots with waves running a couple of feet. Look for south and then east winds from the Pribilovs up to St. Matthew with waves as high as 10 feet around St. Matthew. Now, south of the Bering Strait on Friday, easterly winds, offshore flow off of the western Seward Peninsula, 20-knot easterly winds there on the north side of St. Lawrence Island, Gamble, Savunga, with waves 3 to 4 feet. And then as we get into Saturday, we're looking at, I'll step it back there, I got ahead of myself. South winds will increase off of Cape Lisburn and Point Hope on Friday to 20-25 knots and then turn southwesterly to Utqiagvik. And then finally, as we go up along the Beaufort Sea coast, southwest winds falling off to 10 knots. And again, there are going to be warmer temperatures developing here all through the North Slope and along the Arctic coast Friday into Saturday. And then on Saturday, for the Beaufort Sea coast, southeast to south winds 5-10 knots, becoming southwesterly Utqiagvik down to Point Lay. And then as we drop down into the lower Chukchi Sea for Saturday, look for southeast winds out of Kotzebue Sound, 10 knots. Easterly winds to 10 knots off the Seward Peninsula between Wales and Nome at just 10 knots. And then on the north side of St. Lawrence Island, a little more wind. Look for easterly winds on Saturday at 20 knots with waves 3 to 4 feet.